Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow tells a story, interestingly enough, from the perspective of another character named Ruthie, as she's trying to hunt down a man named Krim of the Yellow Hills for the murder of her father. And on the same quest, she stumbles upon a drunken Supergirl out in space who's depressed and looking for a deeper meaning of her own life, while also trying to help this younger girl preserve her innocence and find the man responsible. Off rip, I have to say I'm thoroughly surprised it took me this long to actually finally read this story. It's a really iconic story most people know of when it comes to Supergirl. I've actually owned the paperback for quite some time now. After seeing the casting for the upcoming Supergirl movie and the DCU films, I decided, you know what? It's finally time to give this iconic story a read. And just to get straight to the point, I loved it. So let's start with some of the pros. The first thing that stands out about this comic that I love is the perspective. The entire story, like I said, is told from Ruthie's point of view, which makes this story kind of stand out compared to many other comics out there. For those who are new to comics or just not familiar with Supergirl, this is a perfect starting point since you'll be able to learn everything about the universe surrounding Supergirl and also about the character herself alongside Ruthie. The story is also excellently paced. It throws you right into the plot line from issue one, and each chapter continues their journey throughout the universe, telling it from different kind of storytelling perspectives, each one being different than the last. The story definitely gives you a greater sense of just how big the DC universe really is, and I really appreciate the fact that the story is super focused on just Supergirl. It can be fun to see Easter eggs and other characters alongside our heroine, but from the DC universe, the only characters that really are shown is Crypto, the dog. And I really appreciate the fact that this whole story is told with full focus on Supergirl, truly depicting how powerful she is and how reliable she is as a hero. We also have to talk about how amazing the artwork was done. This is honestly one of my favorite comics of all time, just from an illustration standpoint. Each character and world was vibrantly colored, and every action scene felt fluid and engaging to read. But lastly, I really loved how we really got to see how Supergirl feels with the weight of the universe on her shoulders. With a brief showing of her past, we see how she is much different from her cousin Superman. The sense of justice and help people is the same, but what makes her stand out is the isolation she felt, the roughness around the edges that she has, and the deep emotional pain she tries to hide. I mean, Superman left Krypton as a baby, so he never really saw the planet's destruction. However, Kara, she was there and had to watch everyone she knew and grew up with die with nothing she can do to help. Now, moving on to my cons, I really only have a few. To start, I do believe the story did have a really slow start. I mean, after the first issue, the next few parts felt more so like side quests in a video game rather than a continuation of the main story. So it did drag a bit. I also wish we got to see more of Ruthie's relationship with her father, since his death at the hands of Krim is the whole reason for all of this. But he was dead by the time we were really introduced to the story. And lastly, I think the fact that Krim was able to incapacitate both Kara and Crypto in the beginning is a bit of a stretch. I mean, I know it's comics, we got to find a way to get this story to go. But I mean, she was weakened, which also brings into account the fact that she was near a red sun. Well, I think Supergirl would just be able to handle that situation with him. I mean, he wasn't some super powerful guy. At that point, he was really just like a regular strong warrior. I mean, she's gone through a lot worse than that, even while being weakened, especially within this story. But overall, I think Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow, was an excellent read filled with very fun and engaging story elements, while also being the best way to fully understand who the character of Supergirl is. So I have to give the story a 4 out of 5, a spectacular rating that I recommend everyone eventually give a read. And hopefully, once this story is depicted in the new DCEU, that it will keep the same story elements and the heartfelt moments that were going on in this novel, and the overall theme of the story is the same, because if it is, then we're all in for a great story.